and welcome to the Certified Recruiting Specialist video series. Today we'll be going over the tail end of the recruiting process, the negotiation and the close. Making the selection from the pool of applicants can be a long and oftentimes complicated process. Adler writes on page 200 of his text that we're required to read that it's never about the money, it's always about the opportunity. When it comes time to selling the opportunity your firm is presenting to potential candidates, make sure you actually sell it. This means that you must be vested in the hiring process and really involved in what the company is trying to do. You can sort of share the benefits and you can sort of indicate where things might go for them with your company, but if you expect to hire any real talent who is a good fit for you, they need to know that they are a good fit. They need to know that you are a good fit for them. You can help convince them of this fact by sharing the EVP, which is the employee value proposition, by asking questions, and by being friendly, courteous, knowledgeable, and enthusiastic, which is from the Pritchard text on page 119. The EVP is also from Adler, a clearly defined summary of the top reasons a person would want your job, irrespective of the compensation. Consider here why the job is important, what some of the biggest challenges are, and the overall link this job has to the candidates looking to advance their career and find a place to grow, if that is something you can in fact offer them. After presenting the opportunity, you may come to a point to a negotiation. Just remember that negotiations are just as much about the candidate as they are the company. Companies sometimes forget that they're not only in the negotiating room to get away with the lowest price for the best quality. They often act this way when actually doing negotiations, which can be a huge turnoff to potential hires. The recruiter's responsibilities do not end until the client's request has been filled. Responsibilities include coordinating offer and acceptance details, communicating rejection notices, and refining requirements from clients and refining your search strategy. Usually you can get feedback from rejections that the client of yours or your actual company that you're working in-house for has given you in order to refine those requirements and to refine your search strategy if you keep coming up with rejections and people who are not really fitting. But since the responsibilities don't end until the request has been filled, the recruiter needs to be around after the initial screening all the way up into an offer being made and accepted. And if you need more info about screening, you can also watch the screening video, which is also available to you on your homepage. The interview, now while this topic really definitely deserves its own video, I want to briefly tie this into the entire negotiation and closing process, because the interview is what leads up to those points, in the first place. The interview is an essential component to the entire recruiting process and needs to be done well. Some tips for a great interview include the following: asking challenging questions. This is also a great place to put some of the opportunity that you want to sell to the candidate into the questions. For example, you can preface a challenging questions with reasons why their answers to that question would be important. For example, Adler says a question in his book, as an example, could be, we're creating an advanced line of machinery lubrication that will dramatically reduce machinery maintenance costs. This will be backed by an extensive advertising campaign. We're looking for some top industrial salespersons to handle the Fortune 100 companies. Can you give me examples of your comparable sales accomplishments? This question not only encourages them to think and provide evidence-based answers that can help to indicate future behaviors, but it will also help to instill the depth of the job, the importance the position has, and the challenges that will face them, which are all things that can help to sell the opportunity the position has overall. The reason this technique will work is that candidates need to learn for themselves why the opportunity you and the job you are offering is more than just another job that will just lead to another job somewhere else. You can't come out, directly and say, we have a great opportunity for you, work here. It has to be more implied than that so that they can come to the conclusion on their own. In many sales books, trainings, or classes, you'll hear that it's much more difficult to convince someone of something, but if they do convince themselves, such as a story that they tell themselves about your product, they are more likely to believe it and will in fact believe it longer. The second tip is to end the interview on a positive note. The hiring manager or whoever is doing the interviewing will need to use a similar question like the one that I'm going to preface here. The hiring manager, or whoever is doing the interviewing, will need to use a question at the end of an interview to maintain interest and to instill confidence in candidates who are great potentials and will likely be called back for a second interview. An example could be, although we're seeing many other fine candidates, I'm very impressed with your qualifications. What are your thoughts about the position now? These two tips can help to really create a good closing and a good place to instill an offer later on in the interview. Though you can ask challenging questions early on in the interview, these questions will really be useful, and really using that end note can certainly give them hope for a second interview. And having the hope that there's competition and that you are being considered are two great things to keep them coming back for a second interview and possibly for actual employment. If the job is too easy to get, they won't be interested. So don't say that we're not looking at anybody else, but do also give them hope that the position could be theirs. If they do accept an offer, they will consider usually 5 factors. The first, the quality of the job. And the quality of the job is really something that includes short-term challenges and long-term growth opportunities. Top people take top jobs primarily to meet their need for growth, challenge, and learning. And second is the quality of the hiring manager. Top people are looking for leaders and mentors. A professional interview with high standards establishes this foundation. Third is the quality of the team. Top people want to work with other top people. Everyone who interviews a candidate must conduct a thorough assessment based on a clear understanding of real job needs. Fourth is the quality of the company, especially the relationship of the job to the company's growth plans. This is why the concept of job branding is important. By tying the job to a major company initiative, you establish an important link. And lastly is the compensation package. As long as the compensation is competitive, you have a good chance to consistently hire top people, assuming the other factors are positive. If the compensation is too low, however, it's very difficult to consistently hire top people. If it's very high in comparison to the competition, then it makes the other factors less important. But as the first slide just showed that we just went over, compensation should not be the end-all component. There is so much more to taking a position than simply compensation. It's as true for you, when you apply and interview for jobs personally, as it is for the people who you recruit and interview. Candidates are always more realistic after they understand the opportunity, and companies are always more flexible when they meet a strong candidate. The reason for this point is simply because, as we see again in Adler's text, there are so many other reasons that a person will take a job offer, and when employee and interviewee have a figure in their heads that differ, negotiations can result in a compromise and a meeting of the minds that makes both parties happy. The example that Adler uses is one that refers to a candidate whose compensation request was 50% more than what the firm wanted to offer. They compromised after finding that they were a great fit for one another and split the difference. Compensation is number 5 in terms of considerations when deciding to take a job or not. Most recruiters, however, make it their number 1 item. So a lesson to learn here, don't talk about compensation first. Candidates may be interviewing with other companies or may be hesitant to accept a position for one reason or another. Because this can be the case, don't give them the final offer right away. Closing is an important aspect, but closing right away without an actual agreement can be dangerous. Wait, be sure that the sale is closed for sure on both ends. This can be done by asking for a start date, for example. If you're at the close of the offer and already negotiating terms, yet the candidate expresses concern or hesitation, ask questions. Probe for answers. There's no better way to find out what's going on in their minds than to ask them. This doesn't need to be pushy or overbearing. Instead, this process should be natural and comfortable, though talking about conflict or hesitation can be uncomfortable at times. Be ready for counteroffers and communicate openly. This open communication will work really in both asking questions and probing for answers, and in the initial interviewing process when you give them challenging questions. For the post-close, as with most aspects of recruiting, nothing is done until the candidate shows up for work. Here are a few ways to ensure that the candidate stays true to the offer they accepted. First is to jointly prepare the formal transition program before starting. Give the candidate an assignment before starting, such as reviewing company websites, looking at policies, etc. Meet and call the candidate regularly and update her on what's happening. This will make her feel more involved and really take a bigger stake in the company. Let the candidate see his new office or workspace. Introduce the candidate to all the staff members. This can be formal or informal. Send over reading material and new positive information, which could also be number 2, which is giving the candidate an assignment before starting. 7 is, if convenient, send the candidate to a seminar or company event before starting. And 8, have a social event like a dinner with spouses. These 8 points can really help encourage an employee or a potential employee to take an offer and to really show up for work. Closing is the crucial part of the recruiting process where everything comes together. It doesn't take a lot to mess up and lose a great candidate. Recruiting is a challenge and really needs constant attention. So, as with most areas, here are some ways to help ensure your success. Avoid downplaying the job. Don't make it sound dreary or drab, and avoid saying that there's little room for improvement. Avoid saying that there's not a whole lot of area for them to advance. Things like that. Also, don't downplay the opportunity that is available, and avoid demeaning the workplace or demeaning other employees. Be professional and prepared, and ask questions that are insightful and intelligent. Being unprofessional, unprepared, and asking stupid questions can really deter a great potential employee, but it will most likely even deter someone who is an average employee. Leave money off the table initially, but do discuss it when the time is right. You don't want to talk about compensation too early or too late, because compensation can be a way to weed out people or cut people off if you're not looking for someone who wants to be paid a lot. But as we saw in previous slides, negotiations can really turn that all around and make somebody who may have been requiring too much come down, and you can also come up as well to meet their needs. Avoid demeaning the candidate, but do know that technical grilling is important so as not to lead the candidate on if you do see something that is perhaps an issue or something that would be conflicting in your workspace. Recruit the whole time, sell the job, sell the opportunity, and share the benefits available to them throughout the whole interviewing process. Recruit until the very end, which is what we went over in the post-close, and avoid talking about ethnic, personal, or political matters. Recruiting is a tough and challenging act, and really getting it right depends on personality, being attentive to detail, and really being empathetic and understanding of somebody else's needs, as well as how the conversation is going. Intuition can be tricky and shouldn't really be relied on too heavily, although there are some things that are pretty noticeable in people who you may not think would be a good fit for the company. And oftentimes going off of your intuition can be helpful in the sense that you know how the workplace works, you know what's needed, and you know the tasks that are required for the position. But as we go over in the screening video, you'll see that screening is a place where you can find your best candidates, but the interview is really where you figure out what you desire in an employee. So don't go off of what's required here in the interview, although that is an important aspect of a job. Go over the requirements through the screening process initially so that you can be sure that everyone you're interviewing is a good potential employee. So this sums up our closing and negotiating video. If you have any questions, shoot me an email at ashley@businesstraining.com.